Well, welcome back to the Mining Indaba in Cape Town yet again. We're back here live for one of the highlights of the Mining Indaba that's become like a tradition every year now. So we're talking about the investment battlefield where young entrepreneurs put their ideas forward to a very skeptical sort of, what do you want to call it, dragon's den, shark pool, and get them scrutinized and questioned. Now the winner gets the investment and the go-ahead. And the other day we were speaking to, in this very chair, to Walter Sharma, who came second last year. He got 180 million because of the win. He managed to raise that much money for his project. We're going over live now to see who's going to win this year.
The winner will receive a free exhibition stand here at the Mining Indaba in 2021, marketing and the post-event report for this year's Mining Indaba, and also a value of $6,000 profile in an upcoming edition of Australia's Pay Dirt. Let me introduce, as people are all filtering in, there's still a few seats left, come and join us. I'll introduce our panel of judges. We'll start on the far side there with George Cheverley, Portfolio Manager at Investec Asset Management. Thank you, George. Heidi Sternberg is next to him, Sector Specialist Mining at Public Investment Corporation. Erez Ishilov, Managing Director of Traxys. Thank you, Erez. And Jonathan Cordero, Head of Corporate Development, Eurasian Resource Group. So now, our next speaker is Rémy Welschinger, Finance Director of ARC Minerals. Rémy. You know how you're going with everything, yeah? You know everything?
I think so,
yeah.
Thank you, Dominic. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to talk to you about ARC Minerals. We are a $25 million company listed on the UK Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange. The board and the executive own about 16% of the company. I'm the finance director. I come from a banking and investment background. When you look at junior companies, especially exploration companies, I think there's three things that matter. Which commodity you're involved in, which asset do you have, how good the asset is, and third, and most importantly, actually, how you're going to finance what you're trying to do here. So let's talk about the macro picture. Most of you know that for copper, we're entering a structural deficit for the next few years, if not decades, and all the big majors and the Chinese are desperate to acquire a big pipeline of copper supply for the next few years. If you give you an example, BHP, 85% of the copper business is one mine, Escondida, and the grade is degrading by 10% a year. So it is strategic to basically find new supply of copper. Why does it matter for the juniors? It's because if you have the right asset, even if the price is down, even if you have coronavirus or any other kind of bearish momentum around the commodity, if you have a tier one asset, the majors or the Chinese will buy it from you, rain or shine. So do we have the right asset? We're basically in the northwestern zone of Zambia, what we call the Domes region. We have a license, or a package of license, which basically covers over 850 square kilometers of land. We're in the right district. Next to us, we have Lumwana that belongs to Barrick Gold, Sentinel that belongs to First Quantum, Kensenchi a bit further east, and we are about 40 kilometers west of Sentinel. This whole group of mines, Lumwana, Sentinels, and our license, belonged to Anglo in the 90s, and we were ranked first in the targeting of licenses. When they left the country, the licenses have been split, and we are the one license left, which basically has a lot of prospect and has not been turned into a mine yet. Look at the neighbors. They're all between 500 million to 1 billion ton at 0.5%. Sentinel has the largest processing plant on the planet, and they're 40 kilometers east of us. So what do we have? We've done in the last 2 years about 51,000 soil samples on the edge of the dome and within the license. We have some of the best geochem anomalies in the entire country. And we've been drilling for about 2 seasons, which accumulates to 18,000 meters of drilling. Bulk of it is diamond drilling. We find 2 discoveries. One, which is Chiesa East, which has some of the best grade ever found in the country for copper. We have a new discovery we've announced 2 days ago called Muswema, a very similar high-grade oxide zone, which is starting to hit some sulfides about 150 meters from surface. We have another 10 or so targets, mostly driven by the geochem and the geophysics we've done over the last 18 months. But we need more time and more money to be drilling it. Let me give you a few highlights of the drilling holes. Hole number 2, which I think we hit in May or June 2019, 26 meters at 1% from surface. Number 4, 18 meters at 2.3%. You will never find in Zambia 18 meters at 2.3%. Kalumbila, Lumwana, Kensenchi, none of them have ever had those results. So it is in the oxide cap, it is from surface. It's a lot of smoke, there must be fire. The fire is a big sulfide ore body, which we are trying to locate. We're starting to hit it at Chiesa, we're starting to hit it at Muswema. There's a lot of other targets which we haven't had the time to drill this season. We stopped early December into the rains, and we're going to try to pursue that into the start of the drilling season, end of April, early May. Now, let me talk about the finance side. I've invested in many companies, smaller, bigger than Arc Minerals. What I hear from executives most of the time is, my background, I've taken a company that was worth 25 bucks, and I've taken it to $200 million over 5 years. I'm a rock star. If you look at the share count, they've also increased the share count by 5x or 6x. So basically, you arrive 5 years later, and the guy tells you, I've taken a tiny junior, and I took it to $200 million, but the share price has not moved. And so those guys can go around and raising money again, pretending to turn small cap into mid cap, but you, the shareholders, has not made any money. So I'm obsessed with trying to avoid dilution. You cannot always avoid it, but what we've done so far, we've been lucky enough to offload one of the gold assets we had. It was 1 million ounces in Slovakia. We're going to get about $500,000 of cash in the next few weeks from this, and then some further cash flows based on milestone payments. And we have a 3 million ounces gold deposit in DRC, which we're in the process of selling. I don't know how much we're going to get from this, but I'd like to think the cash component of it will be between 2 to 6 million US dollars, and it would take a few months. And we've raised about $1.7 million of loan a month ago. So depending on whether we can close the DRC asset sale, we'll have between $3 to $6 million budget for next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Now it's time for our judges to dissect Rémy's presentation and project. Who would like to go first? Jonathan?
I'll go first. Rémy, thank you again for your presentation. You're in an area where you have very acid solubility ratios, right? You have oxide zones, you have transitional zones, you have sulfide zones that require very different processes. At the same time, you mentioned you have 850 square kilometers of tenements, a huge area. So you can easily burn millions of dollars in exploration and drilling campaigns and then find out that on the processing side, you will face issues in treating the material. How are you going to manage that risk?
Look, it's a very good question, Jonathan. So what we've done with the Chiesa zone, which I've mentioned, we've drilled about 65 holes there, all in the oxide cap from 0 to 150 meters. 300 meters by 300 meters, we have about 25 meters of thickness continuously at 1%. We're going to probably joke it up. It's going to be small, nothing to do with elephants. But that we're going to use this to basically go through the met test and the mineralogy test to then be able to decide on the processing route for this high-grade small zone. That will give us a lot of information. We're already in discussion with a lot of majors and some of the Chinese group, and they are waiting for those results as well to see whether that could work. One of the natural fit for us is to get to a size that is big enough to potentially go to Kalumbila. Kalumbila, based on the public information, has about 10 years of ore left to put into the process plant. If we can find something big enough, we'll have to do a lot of work on the met to be able to see whether it can be processed from their plant. So it is key. A lot of people find decent-sized deposit, but the met doesn't work. We're working on this. We're doing a lot of the studies over the next few months in some of the oxide zone, but you'll have to wait to hit the sulfides to do further met test anyway.
Thank you, Rémy. George, would you like to go?
Copper mines are expensive. You know, if you look forward, is your plan to find a partner to develop this deposit? Is that what you're really looking for, or do you think you can credibly, you know, actually do it yourselves?
Look, George, we're explorers, so very likely we're not going to mine this ourselves. We're actually going to mine from a small plant we have, a demonstration plant where we have a small-scale mining license. And we do this to go through the test and the recovery ratios, which helps a lot in the discussions with some of our potential partners. But we're not going to be big miners. It's very unlikely. We're explorers. That's where the skills are. And so the idea is, whether it takes another year or 3 years to extract the most value, we'll offload it to a major or to the Chinese.
What type of resource size will satisfy you? What's the point you're trying to reach?
I want to be bigger than Kamoa. That's the ambition here.
Kamoa and Kakula. Yeah.
More seriously, one of the big anomalies, the geochem called Chiesa, it's 8 kilometers by 6 kilometers. If you were to capture a third of this, 20 meters, 2 times density ratio, and you get into the 0.5 to 1%, win the 5 to 10 million tons of contained copper. So this is the ambition. We're not there yet. But with the geochem anomalies, which are the best in countries, the drilling results in the oxide cap, which are the best in the country, we'd like to think we can compare to Kalumbila and Lumwana, and potentially closer to the Kamoa type of geology.
Have you started poking some deeper holes, or are you still at the soluble oxides?
So look, we've done about 70 holes, 75 holes this drilling season, all about 150 meters. There's about, I want to say, up to 5 holes, which we've put down all the way to 250 meters. Out of those 5 holes, 2 of them did not hit mineralization, which for a quoted company is frustrating because you need to give good news to the market. But from a geo point of view, those are the most interesting holes we've had. So next year, what would be great is to find the balance between hitting the holes which allows you to give good news to the market, but also the holes which are irrelevant to the market, or the people like me who are not geologists, but which actually gives you an enormous amount of information. So we've gone all the way down to 250 meters. We're probably going to try to poke a few holes 400, 500 meters to try to understand which hosting rock, whether the sulfides would be, whether it's in the lower Rhone, in the upper Rhone, or maybe in the basement. So we'll do this from May onwards.
What technologies or what IS or IT, if at all, are you using to help you zoom in and avoid what you guys were talking about, where you can basically explore forever and incur huge costs? How do you focus?
So look, this year what we've done, we've been following the easy pickings, like my geologist would say, which is the geochem was so strong at surface that we've just been drilling where the anomalies were very strong. We had peaks of 3,000 ppm for copper in Chiesa East. So that's the easy way of doing it. You could say the lazy way of doing it, but it's worked in 2 discoveries. What we're going to do over the next 3 months, we've hired a lot of consultants, people actually who come from Kamoa, who are experts in the copper belt, to try to do some ratioing in the geochem and advanced geochem analysis. So you can start to understand where the source of potential sulfide is. And that's going to be the work. So hopefully by May, when the ground is dry, we'd like to have a more educated guess as to where to drill, not just to hit easy picking oxide copper, but trying to see where at 100, 200, or 300 meters the sulfides are.
We've got a couple of minutes left. Did anybody else have a question? Heidi?
Sure. You said that you still need time and money to be able to take your program forward. Time, I'm assuming, is because of the rainy season, and now you have to stop and wait for a while?
Well, it's both. Time is money, basically. So it depends what you want to achieve, right? Every week now, we have the juniors, $5 million, $10 million market cap, signing a JV with the big majors, right? We see one in Finland, one in Canada. The problem is that right now we could sign a term sheet where someone is committing to spend 10, 15 millions for the next 3 years in our license, but I'm going to give away 70% of the assets. So you have to kind of balance out how far you want to go alone, and that might be dilutive unless you're lucky with the asset sales, or whether you want to share the upside and the downside with a major partner now. And that's why I'm talking about the time versus the thing. If I can get to a billion-ton JORC resource within the next 2 drilling season, and I know I can extract a few $100 million of outcome for the shareholders, for the company, with the majors or the Chinese, I'll do it. But how much does it cost me to get to 1 billion ton? If it takes me another drilling season, and you assume we're going to drill 20,000 meters per season, which is a lot, right? It would take about 4 or 5 rigs. You know, am I going to dilute with an equity placing? Am I going to have enough with a non-core asset sale? Can I split the license and let one of the majors on one of the license to earn in, and I keep all the blue sky in the other one if they were to hit the mother load? All of this is up for debate. Right now, we can only concentrate on the science. We have amazing geos that do all this work, and we are having back and forth with the majors and the Chinese to see what's the fair deal for them and for us to try to retain upside. That's where we are.
George?
How close are you to power?
We are basically 40 kilometers away from power. I think that's where Kalumbila is. You know, if you go back 10 years ago, you had power all the way to Solwezi, and then nothing. And then Lumwana built Power and Tarmac Road. Then all the way to Kalumbila, which is another 50 kilometers west. And we're 40 kilometers west. So I think we have half of it is Tarmac Road. And in terms of power, we don't. But it's 40 kilometers away at Kalumbila. I mean, we have generators, but in terms of like infrastructure, it stops at Kalumbila, 40 kilometers away.
Just to understand, are you the furthest west copper exploration area? Or,
We are not covered by the Kalahari Sands. So all the majors and some of the juniors have spent 10 years trying to find stuff west of us, on the way to Winilunga and then on the way to Angola. But you're covered by the Kalahari Sands.
Yes.
So actually the first 50 to 100 meters will give you zero information. The geochem will be very hard. So you're all relying on the geophysics. There hasn't been a single success in the last 10 years. There's been hundreds of millions of dollars spent in that western side. So we've been very lucky, nothing to do with me, but we're basically right at the edge of the sands cover. So we're still outcropping, which is very good.
Rémy, thank you very much. We've out of time.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
and
Dominic.
please stay around when we announce the winner. Thank you. Could you join me in thanking Rémy?